The cat is very distracting. Ah! Bitch. So it's that time of year where everyone wants to make a temperature blanket, and I'm here to tell you not to make one. From someone who did try to make one, I thought I would share with you why I don't want to attempt to make one again and why basically they shouldn't be made. There is one behind me. I didn't make this, my mum did, but I'll get into that more later. So I've actually made a lot of notes, and this is going to be a rather serious video, I think. So the first reason is quite an obvious one. If you make a temperature blanket, you've got the pressure of knitting every single day. It's a large knit every day if you do a blanket as well. It's not like a little tiny project that you can just do like 10 stitches. It's like a blanket. It's a big project to knit every single day. Also, there is the pressure of checking the weather every single day, and there are websites that you can go on that tell you the weather for the past couple of days, but it's only the past couple of days. And you can also find weather from like 20 years ago, like 10, like you can find weather if you really want to, but that's another thing. Like, that is a lot of work for something that is supposed to be nice and relaxing. Another reason, which I think is an important one, you might be like 4 months in, 6, even 10, and you've knit like 10 months worth of weather, and you don't want to do it anymore, like you hate the project, but then you have this thing, you have to finish it because it's a year-long project that you have to work on every single day. Think of all the projects you have just sat in a box somewhere that have been there for years. You can pick them up and start them again because you've got the pattern there. But with a temperature blanket, like, you can't just pick it up and work on it in the next year's time. And also it's meant to be like a yearly kind of diary thing. So if you pick it up in a year's time, 2 years' time, it's going to kind of defeat the whole point of making one. For me, and like every other person that knits, knitting's supposed to be relaxing, it calms you down, it de-stresses you. If you do a project like this, like a big project, and you have to do it every day and you don't want to do it anymore and you start to hate it, that really defeats the point of like the whole knitting process. And then you'll feel like you have to finish it, so you will finish it and you'll just hate every moment of it. So yeah, it's a big project. It's a big project, and you have to think about that right before you just rush into it. And yeah, knitting is something that you can pick up and work on whenever you fancy. You can start another project, so you can put that down, start another project. It just feels relaxing. And with a temperature blanket, it's like a job. Like, you have to check the weather every day. You have to write the weather down every day in a little notebook. You have it is a job having a temperature blanket because you have to work on it every single day. It's like a full-time job. Another thing is picking the colours. Now, this isn't too hard because there's a lot of websites that tell you like give you colour ideas and pattern ideas. And if you do go on those and you read to the end, or you've talked to anyone else who's made a temperature blanket, the one thing they say is they will never do it again, and that just screams it all. This might seem like quite a negative video towards temperature blankets. Like, I do like them, and this one is gorgeous, but I do feel like I should come on and be like, think about it before you rush into it because it's such a big project. So it is okay to have, obviously we know this, we have many, it is okay to have loads of projects lying about, like unfinished projects, and this does come into the temperature blanket. As long as you've written the weather down every single day, you can pick it up in like a month's time and work on them rows then. But I do feel like if you don't do it every day or every other day, I think I would go max 3 days without doing it, because once you go past that, it does feel like a chore. So you have to keep on top of it. Coming back to it in a month's time, 2 months' time, that is a lot of knitting, and it's a lot of the same yarn as well. And it just feels like if you don't do it every day, it could become quite tedious. But if you really want to make one, which I'm not saying don't make, well, I kind of am. But if you are going to make one, what was I saying? If you are going to make one, then do try to work on it every day, every other day. Like, you don't want to get on top of you, basically. You want to be able to enjoy it, like, because it is a big project, but knitting is nice. So if you do keep on top of it, I think it would be a lovely thing to do. And it will be a stress-free project because you were like, oh, it's time to do my blanket, and you get excited and you're like, oh, what's the weather like? And you'll get in the habit of writing the weather down and knitting every day. I didn't. That's just me. I hated making mine. So you might be thinking, oh, I can get another knitter to do it with me, because that's what I thought. I was like, Mum, let's knit this temperature blanket together. So I made the pattern up and picked the colours and everything. And then you think it's going to motivate you? It didn't. It didn't motivate me one bit. I just felt pressure with this project. So yeah, Because even if you don't live together or you don't live nearby, you can obviously take videos and pictures and like, oh, I've done this today, what have you done? That didn't help me. I just saw this temperature blanket as a big chore. Like, it was kind of awful. There was a few problems with the one I did make because I was like, okay, let's do chevron stitch. Mum was like, no, I'm going to do garter. I was like, that makes more sense. I only did about a week and a half and then I started to resent it. So that's okay because it's only a week and a half and you can, honestly, I actually just threw it in the bin. I didn't even pull the yarn out. But if it's a week and a half or like a month, you can probably get away with pulling the yarn out and using that yarn for something else. But like I say, if you're 4 months in, you feel like you have to finish it. It's like a back of the mind thing if you've knitted that much. So like I say, I picked the colours and they were gorgeous colours. I picked a baby pink for like cold weather, and I was walking to the shop one day and the sky was actually, this was way after I picked the colour, but the colour I picked was actually that sky at that day, and I was like, oh, this is going, it was like December time still, and I was like, oh, this is going to be lovely knitting my temperature blanket, and I was excited because it was a gorgeous colour. So yeah, like I say, it's a big project, a big project. This is a blanket that Mum had to cut in half. So she's got half and she gave me half. And because she did that, she also had to knit this border. So she knit the border separately and then sewed it on after onto both blankets. It's big. But every time I look at this blanket, I do feel really, really proud of Mum. And that is another thing. If you do this blanket, like, it's a big achievement. It is something to be proud of. Like you've knit every day for a year and you've made this massive thing and you've like held this. Hello. So you feel proud and you've held yourself accountable. Forget anyone else, like you've done it. Like it's a big achievement. It's a big project. So if you made it this far, just remember, like I'm being quite negative because I hate them. But you will feel a big achievement at the end of the year. So if you made it this far and you were planning to make one and I have somehow changed your mind, like don't be disheartened. Use that yarn for something else. Use it for projects throughout the year that will make you happy, and little projects. It can be a big project because let's face it, nothing is as big as a temperature blanket. And one more thing about the temperature blanket, it's a big project, but you could make a scarf as long as you remember to write the weather down every single day. So I do have some alternative ideas that are yearly ones, but not everyday yearly. So the first one is, this is quite lovely. I think I might do this, but like I say, I might not. I prefer my second idea. Anyway, so when you're doing a project, knitting, crochet, save some yarn from that project and turn that into like a scarf or a little square. I would say separate squares are better because if you do a scarf, then you kind of feel that pressure of having to make it long. So if you have separate squares, you could make a cushion cover with them, you can make a blanket. It depends on how many things you make throughout the year. And what if you did make a blanket that way? Like what if you made loads of things and you were loving it and at the end of the year you just sewed them all up? Like that is nice as well, compared to doing an actual blanket where it's like big long rows, so you have to do every day. I think that would also be really nice because I never actually sat down and thought how much stuff I made this year, but if I was to sit down and do this, I reckon there would be a lot of squares. And it doesn't have to be a square of the one colour. You could just do a few stitches of that yarn and then add some more stitches in. Like you don't have to save a lot of yarn to do this project either, because some projects you don't have spare yarn. So even if you were to do like 4 stitches and incorporate that into a square somehow, you could still have every colour that you've worked on this year. The more I talk about this, the more I like this idea. Okay, the one I am going to do definitely is, so I've started reading again, and when I say reading I mean audible books, and that's still reading, okay? Audio books, you can like do everything. I even did my makeup earlier listening to one, because honestly putting makeup on is such a chore. But I had my book on, I was sorted. I read about 3 books a month on Audible because I found a secret little hack. I'll comment with the hack below. So I'm on my 2nd book now. I only started listening to books like a week and a half ago, and even though it's December and this is a year starting in January, it's like a book blanket. I'm going to put my squares in from this month because they are what inspired me to make the book blanket. So the first book I listened to was Hollywood Park by Michael Jolet, and I only read this book because I like the band. Oh, it's beautiful. It's just the Audible book is really, really good as well because it's in the band. So the band has made some music to go with it, but not like with most audiobooks where it's like bam, it's like nice pianos and it's really quiet in the background. It only lasts for like 30 seconds. But yeah, it was a really, really good book. I really enjoyed it and I finished that very fast. So these are the colours I'm going to do for the book cover. I've written down in my book that I'm going to do 4 rows because I feel like that's a good go-to. So for this Hollywood Park, I'm going to do 2 black and white rows, 1 tan row and 1 white row, and that the black and white is for the photograph, this is for the tan for the people, and the white is for the t-shirt. So that's the plan, and I'm going to do 2 rows of black and white and 1 row each of the tan and white. And this is a brilliant stash buster. This is a brilliant stash buster. Because obviously this is like the same DK, but then this black and white one, it's perfect for that black and white photograph too. This black and white one is very flecky. It's very flecky, but it doesn't matter. It's going to be like quite a scrappy thing, I think, because if I was to stick to the same yarns, it would become a big thing. Oh, I forgot to mention as well, when you do a temperature blanket, you have to buy a lot of yarn, like a lot of yarn. It's a big expense, and that adds to the pressure. This is so squishy. It's a big expense, and that adds to the pressure of having to finish it because you've spent so much money. So I'm going to use only my stash here. Hopefully I should have enough colours. It depends what books I read. She's back. I'm not sure if I'm going to learn a new knit stitch and make little squares, or if I'm going to do a granny square. I haven't thought that far yet, but unlike the temperature blanket, it's okay. I don't have to have a plan for January the 1st. I can pick a plan maybe like January 15th, and it's only 1 square I have to do. So I could pick my pattern, my plan, and there's no time limit really. I'm actually listening to Flowers in the Attic because it's a classic apparently. I just thought to see what everyone was going on about. So this one first, and then red, black, white and tan for Flowers in the Attic because it's a 40th anniversary edition. And then after that I want to read The Face Maker. I read her first book and it's so good. Joseph Lister is amazing basically. And when I used to live in Scotland, in the surgeon's hall they had his jacket, and I felt like such a nerd because I was like, that's his jacket. But that book's really good. She's a really, really good writer. I'm quite excited this year because I found that hack for Audible. I think I'm going to listen to a lot more books. I actually bought The Face Maker real life because I was planning to read it, but I just can't sit down to read anymore. My brain just can't focus. Plus, with audiobooks, you can knit and crochet and go on dog walks, and basically you can live your life and listen to a book, which is better than just sitting down and reading a book. I used to read loads when I was little. I do like actual books. So I'm never really sure how to end my videos. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And have you made a temperature blanket before? How did you find it? It's a nice thing to have, but do remember it's a big project, and think about it before you just launch into it, because I just launched into it. I only bought 1 ball each of the colours I needed, so I didn't spend too much straight away, which was good, because if I'd bought the actual what I needed, I would feel the pressure, and I would have finished it, and I would have hated it on like the 15th day. So imagine hating something for like 11 months. Okay, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next week. If you're new here, my videos are weekly, and they're knitting, crochet, sewing. I've got a lot of hobbies. I will do a monthly update on my book blanket too. I'm really excited about that. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye.